How about that chapel band? Yeah. You guys rock. That song is very fitting, I think. Graves in the Gardens and how there's nothing better than Jesus Christ. It truly is my story, wrapped up in a nutshell right there. That there's nothing better than Jesus. A big part of me wanted to deflect and not do this because, I don't know, when I get on a stage, I think there's a sense of pride that can swell up within me and think, oh, Brooks and Schmidt's on stage, and I can't wait for people to hear what Brooks and Schmidt has to say, but I prayed a lot last night, this morning, just now, that God would just remove myself and my pride and any sense of this wanted to be about me. I want it to be strictly about Jesus Christ and what he's done in my life. So with that being said, here we go. I've had the name Jesus in my head since I can remember. My parents, I'm sure, like most parents, were not perfect. My old man has struggled with alcoholism his whole life, and my mama has her fair share of mistakes as well. When I was 6 years old, they officially divorced, and since my memory has been able to truly stick in my head, I've only known a life of living in two different households with single parents. Living at my dad's house was completely different from living at my mom's. At my dad's house, there were nights where I'd be left alone with no cell phone or home phone because he was weird and never got a home phone from 2 p.m. till 1 a.m. During those times, there'd be a lot of tears and extreme fears of my dad not coming home because he either got arrested for drunk driving or was dead in an accident that he most likely caused due to his drunk driving. I thought that a lot. Although absent for quite a bit of my life, he made it to all my games and never failed to tell me he loved me and believed in me. And that meant more to me than anything. In a weird way, he was my hero. He served in the military, was a firefighter, and is truly one of the funniest guys I've ever known. He has a huge heart, and he cares for others. He especially cares for his kids. He always tells us to do our best and let God do the rest, which I've kept close to my heart, and I even have it tattooed on my left arm right here. Let's see, where am I at? But he has a thorn in his flesh, which is his battle with alcoholism. This has affected me in so many years of my life. From a very early age, I've realized that my parents were not perfect, but they did do one thing that I truly believe made a huge difference in my life and my siblings' life, and that is they kept us in church as best as they could. Both of my parents would pray with me before bed, and I saw my father read the good book often. Sometimes I'd take his Bible and see how marked up it was with highlights, notes off to the side, and how it was falling apart because of how much it was used. I thought that was so cool and wanted to have mine look exactly like it. With that being said, I've always known the name of Jesus, and that name sat in my head for a long time without any real sense of what it meant. Since I knew the name of Jesus, but not the true meaning of life with him, I like to think of my life as being before being fully surrendered to Christ and then after being fully surrendered to Christ. And that is a key thought, and I think a very valuable point of what a student story or a testimony is. It's how Christ changed you and the way you lived. So I'll show you how before me being fully surrendered to Christ and how my life changed after I became fully surrendered to Christ. And I want to give all the glory of my change to Jesus and nothing on me, literally nothing. Before being fully surrendered to the name that was lost in the mix of my head, I lived a very hollow, empty, void, numb, judgmental, and sinful life. I was told I was a lot like my dad. I look a lot like him. I could be his twin, and we share the same personality. In my ignorance and victimized attitude, I thought that meant I'd turn out exactly like him. I mean, that's what made the most sense to me at the time. If I look like him and act like him, what would keep me from turning out exactly like him? With that immature thought locked into my head, I seriously thought that I'd be a firefighter one day and an alcoholic one day. This is when I started chasing after the world and its hollow offerings. I started drinking with buddies, hanging out with people that I thought would make me cool. I chased after girls and never got any because I was a little bit bigger back then, and my friends would always call me a greasy ginger whale, truly. They would call me that all the time. I had longer hair, and it was a little gross. Lastly, I chased comfort from quitting sports and literally doing nothing with my life. I mean, I would literally go home and play Fallout on the PS4 with my buddies from 4 p.m. after school till 12, and I did nothing. So in the middle of my sophomore year of high school, I found myself out of shape in a crowd of people I didn't want to be in and having no plan or drive in life. On top of that, my dad was in his first day at rehab in Amarillo, Texas, and eventually went to somewhere in Mississippi. It was a good thing, but Dad was gone for 6 months, and I was absolutely lost. I was sad, and I was lonely. When my dad got back and was all sober, I figured life would be smooth sailing. And it was my junior year of high school. I decided to play football again. I was living with a sober father for the first time in my entire life, which was amazing. I mean, everything should be good, but they weren't. I still found myself chasing the things that could never fulfill me, and eventually my dad relapsed. The hope of having my dad sober and living a life free from addiction went away, and this time he went to a deep, dark spiral. I'd come home from morning workouts, and he'd be in his bed still from the night before. The only reason he left his bed was to get a drink. He wouldn't eat or go out unless it was to get more alcohol. He was binge drinking and essentially slowly killing himself. I had no idea what to do. I was a 17-year-old kid, and seeing my hero in this shape was absolutely wrecking me. Every day would tear me up and eat me alive, seeing him slowly waste away like that. Coming home every day just to see if my dad was breathing was a pretty sad reality, but that's what my life was. And with my dad being this bad and me being this incredibly lost, I was barely getting by. One random Friday, I was at off-season football with my friends, and one of them asked me to go to youth group winter retreat. I hadn't been to church in a long time and was pretty discontent with how I thought God was treating me in my life situations. If God loves everyone so much, then why is my dad trying to drink himself to death? My friends convinced me to go, and it turns out we had to leave in about an hour, so I sprinted home, packed up, and then found myself on a big old bus with a bunch of people I haven't seen in a really long time, getting to have a good old time. I was expecting much else. I had no clue what was going to happen on this retreat, but I was there and was going to simply see what the story was. After a day and a half of the retreat, I was having a blast, and it was nice to get away with some of the people I haven't seen in a while. And on the last night of the retreat, there was a little prayer session. Nothing out of this world, but just something where if you wanted to get up and pray with someone, like a pastor or a sponsor, you could. And it turns out my goated brother, Brighton Schmidt, who's here right now, which means so much to me, was one of the sponsors that you could pray with. And to this day, I don't know if it was the Spirit that led me or if I just felt like, man, that'd be kind of cool to go pray with Brighton. But I got up and went to Brighton, and the moment I reached Brighton, I started crying. Truly, absolutely bawling like a baby. In that moment, I felt the guilt, shame, sin, and condemnation that I'd been living in so heavily. I truly saw how I saw my life. I was holding on to control of my life so tightly, and I'd made a mess. Why in the world would I trust myself? And on top of all the weight and pain that I felt, my heavy heart for my dad was unbearable. I could no longer hold it on my own. It was literally breaking me and ripping my life apart. However, in that same moment, I felt the freedom that only Christ can bring. And the only way that you can feel that freedom is coming clean to Jesus and being fully surrendered to Him. And that's what I was doing. I was coming clean. I finally understood that I may not be able to hold on to control in my own life and my issues, but Jesus can. Not only can He do that for me, but He wants to do it for me. He cares for me. He cares for my dad. He had been patiently waiting for me to fully come to Him and lay down everything at His feet. I'll never forget it. That was the moment I fully surrendered to Christ. And by the grace and mercy of God, my fire for Christ has not gone away since that night. And the timing of that surrender could not have been even better. Going back home from the retreat, I knew what I was coming back to. I knew how bad my dad was. And for the first time, though, I looked at it in the light of knowing that God was in control, not me. I no longer had to carry the burden. Knowing that in my heart and being fully surrendered helped me get through the worst day of my life. It was May of my junior year of high school, and I had no other option but to ask for help in order to take care of my dad. I was completely out of options, and I had no idea what I was doing. I called my sister because Brighton was at camp, and she came over to his apartment, and this began the longest day of my life. We went round after round after round trying to convince my dad to get in the car and go to rehab, but he would not budge. He said things that I will not forget, and I won't say today, but they're forever in my head. It eventually got to the point where we had to call the cops because we were pulling out all the stops to get this guy to rehab. And when my sister went outside to make the call the cops, my dad slowly walked over to his closet. And I truly believe if I had not been in the apartment that day, I don't think my dad would be here right now. He started to pull out his AR-15 that he had under his clothes in his closet and was getting ready to kill himself with it. I sprinted over to him, ripped out the gun out of his hands, and put the gun back in his case. I'm sorry, I'm going to try not to cry. And then sat on it. My dad then proceeded to beg me for the gun and asked if I'd just let him do it. He kept saying that, just let me do it. And that's something I haven't forgotten and never will forget. I was crying uncontrollably and trying to gather my thoughts. Then finally the cops came in, and they looked at him and could tell he was withdrawing already because we weren't letting him drink and stuff like that. And they asked if he was threatening to do harm to himself, and I said, yep, real fast. And they took him to detox. And watching your dad get put in a cop car is a really weird thing to see. This is the heavy story of all the different ones I could have chosen to say, along with my siblings that have experienced it with me through my dad's alcohol addiction. I tell you this one because of how faithful God was to me, my family, my dad in this situation. And if I wasn't fully surrendered to Christ in that moment, I don't think I'd be anywhere close to the man that I am today. I literally could not carry what I witnessed that day all on my own. There's no shot. And the Spirit of Christ is what moves me along. And that's it. I've only come to realize that through that situation, that I myself have nothing. I literally have nothing whatsoever. But all I have is Christ and the Spirit. And the weird thing is that having only those two things, I have everything. If I have Christ, then I have all that I need. Nothing else will satisfy. Nothing else will help. Nothing else matters except for Christ. Why? Because Christ brings life. He brings purpose. He brings joy. You could take everything from me and somehow, some way, I'd be okay because I have Christ. Even if you took my life, took my dad's life, or took my brother's life or anything like that, I'd be okay because I have Christ, and that's the ultimate joy one person can attain, is being with Christ. My encouragement for you today is simple. The trials in your life are tough, and if you have none, you're going to have some for sure. And when they come, it'll be absolutely brutal. It'll kick you to your knees and make you cry out for help. It'll hurt. It probably won't make any sense at the time, and it probably will last for a while. The battle of my dad's alcoholism is still going on to this day, and I really don't see an end in sight. With that said, the trials in life are not a waste. They are not to be wished away. They are for nothing. That's wrong. They are not for nothing. They're to show you that you can't do it on your own. You cannot do it on your own. They show you just how helpless you really are, and they show you that you desperately need Jesus. If you aren't fully surrendered to him, then you'll be empty and lost no matter how good life can get for you. He is the only path to contentment, true joy, and peace. He is what's missing in your life and my life whenever I choose not to follow after him. He's what's missing. So I encourage you to let go of control today, surrender to Jesus, and do your best and let God do the rest. Thank you very much.
You guys would bow your heads with me, please. I'll be making a quick prayer, but in my language. That's how I like to start. So close your eyes. Santo Deus, eterno Pai, eu te louvo, Jesus, e te agradeço pela oportunidade de estar, Senhor, aqui, falando da Tua palavra, Senhor. Que o meu testemunho possa tocar a vida de muita gente, que possamos sair daqui, Senhor, impactados com a Tua glória e com o Teu poder. Em nome de Jesus. Amen. So, as you know, my name is Alex, but actually my name is Alexander, but I go by Alex. And today I'll share with you guys a little bit of my story and how I ended up here in the United States. It's a very crazy story, but I'll make it short. But what I wanted to know is that God is still making miracles. Sometimes we forget that, but God is still doing pretty amazing things. So, I was born in a Christian family. Well, technically, my parents got married at a very young age. My mom was 17, my father was 22, and they converted shortly after. My father was a soccer player, and because of that, we lived in so many different cities, like 10 different cities in Brazil. Moved to Switzerland when I was 7, lived there until I was 10, and then we moved to Bolivia for 2 years. So I know French, I know Spanish, now I know English, I speak Portuguese, so there are a lot of languages going on in my mind right now. And we came back to Brazil, I was 13 years old. When I turned 15, I decided to try to be a soccer player, which is pretty shocking because soccer in Brazil, it's not a big thing at all. And as you can see, I did not make it to the professional level. And I had to start work. It's not that I'm lazy, but I didn't want to work. I wanted to work playing soccer, you know. Imagine a soccer life is pretty amazing. But well, I found a job in a toys factory. If you don't like 8 a.m.s, imagine a shift that goes from 5 a.m. until 2 p.m. I had to wake up every day at 4 and go to work until 2. Come back to my house, take a nap, and at night, I would go to class because I was trying to get in school in Brazil, and that class would go until 10 p.m. It was miserable. And I remember being there, working there. Well, I'm grateful for having a job, don't get me wrong. But I was so frustrated with that situation because my whole life was about soccer, you know. And suddenly, my life had nothing to do with soccer anymore. So I was very, very frustrated. Like, my father was a soccer player. My grandfather was a soccer player, all professionals, great players. And I was there producing toys. I was like, God, what is going on, man? Like, I'm not mad at you, but that situation, I can't deal with that. And I remember that I had a friend, and he told me, have you ever thought about going to the United States, play and study? And I was like, no, I've never thought about that. First, not a big fan of studying. Second, I don't have money to pay. Well, keep in mind that back in the time, $1 was like 3 of my currency. So everything that you pay for me would be like the triple. Third, I didn't know English. And fourth, I did not know that things such NCAA and NAA existed. But then he told me, brother, it's possible. You can get scholarships if you're decent. I was like, at that moment of my life, I would try anything to get out of that situation. So I decided to study English like crazy. Back at the time, I had a girlfriend. And she had DVD boxes from Gossip Girl, it's a show, and Pretty Little Liars. Now, I promise you, I watched those things at the beginning only because I wanted to learn English, but it's a pretty good show, man. For real. I don't like Blair and Chuck, though. Anyways, I was studying, and I made a mistake. Oh, I wouldn't say a mistake, but I made the right thing, and I'm going to explain why. I told my supervisor at my work, at my job, that my plan was to come to the United States to study and play. And his words, I bring these words with me because they really changed me. He turned to me and he said, brother, you barely speak Portuguese. You think you're going to learn English by yourself. And I took that personally. And I started to study like crazy. I would study from the moment I woke up until the moment I would go to bed. For those that are not international students, if you're international, when you come to America, you gotta do something called TOEFL, which is a test that is gonna check if your English is good enough to be accepted on an American school. In 3 months, I had 3 months to study, and I got an 84. Now, 84 is above average, so it's a very, very good score. And I wanted to tell him that, but I didn't. I should have. So I had videos of me playing soccer. I had my TOEFL score, and I asked for my pastor to write a recommendation letter. I was a member from the Nazarene Church in Brazil. So here I am. I got my laptop, sat in front of my laptop, went to the NAIA website. I didn't even try NCAA schools because you need the SAT to study at NCAA schools, and I suck with numbers. So I was like, I'm not gonna even try. If they make me do an SAT, I'm gonna fail. So I sent emails to every single school from the NAIA. And I was already at the letter S. And I was getting offers, good offers to be honest. But the remaining amount, I couldn't afford it. And I remember I sent an email to Southwestern Christian University, which is the university right down the street. And their assistant coach replied me, and he gave me like a tiny scholarship, like ridiculous. I could not afford it all. And I was starting to get so desperate because I thought like, I'm not gonna make it. Such a hard work to get at this point, and I'm not gonna make it. So in Brazil, we have this habit where you go on a hill to pray. You go with a group of people, you go by yourself. Mostly we go at midnight and we pray there. We worship until the sun comes up, like the whole night, literally. We say that God will listen to us because the line is shorter and there are not a lot of people praying at night. So, but it's just a joke. For me, it's pretty easy to not sleep, but it's hard for me to sleep and wake up at 3 a.m. to do something at 4. But if you guys want to get God's attention, you got to do something hard. You got to do something different. So I say, I'm going to sleep, wake up at 4, and I'm going to go walk up the hill right next to my house, and I'm going to sit there and pray. So I did this the whole week. Praying, and I was like, God, I need you, man. Like, there's nothing I can do. It's impossible for me, but you can do it. Please open that door. I got back, and my girlfriend at the time, she asked me, have you been sending the recommendation letters? And I need to thank her for that if she watches one day. I was like, no, I forgot. She was like, so send it. I was like, okay, I'll send it. Now, keep in mind that Southwestern Christian is not a Nazarene school, but there's a word Christian there. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to send it like through every single school again, because I was at the letter S already. So I'll send from the letter S on. So at night, I resend an email to Southwestern Christian University, but this time I sent to the head coach. Went to bed, wake up at 4. I went to the hill to pray again. I was like, God, this song, Waymaker, Miracle Worker, I need you to make this thing real. I need you to make this happen. Please open that door. I don't want to go back to that factory never again. I got back, I took a nap, and there was an email from the head coach. His name is Neil Cagle. Now, Southwestern, like I said, is not a Nazarene school, but Neil Cagle is a member of the Bethany First Church of the Nazarene. And he saw the recommendation letter and the logo from the Church of the Nazarene. He replied me asking a bunch of questions, background, pastors, and blah, blah, blah. I was like, why is he so interested in my religious background? We talked for 3 days, and at the end, this was his last email before giving me numbers and scholarships. That's what he said. Those are his words. I wanted to know that I decided to choose you over a lot of other candidates because you were a Nazarene member. God sometimes moves in mysterious ways. I don't remember how old he was when he recruited me, but he said, I have been looking for a good soccer player who is a Nazarene for my whole career, and you are the first one who I thought might be good enough. I don't know, I think he's been a coach for like 30 years. And his whole career, he was looking for someone like me. And that's pretty amazing for me. But anyways, he recruited me not because I was a great player, even though I think I'm pretty decent, but because I was a member from the Nazarene Church. And that's the only reason why. So if you think I'm here because I play soccer, it's not. It's because literally God just brought me here because he wanted to. So he offered me a scholarship, very good scholarship, much bigger than what the assistant coach offered me like 2 days before. I still couldn't afford it. And here's the crazy part. We lived in Switzerland for 3 years, like I said before. We left Switzerland in 2007. Keep in mind that this is happening in 2017. So 10 years later, out of the blue, someone calls my father and says, hey, there's a chance you have some money in a bank account here in Switzerland that you didn't take with you when you left to Brazil. And my father, oh, really? So what I need to do to get that money? He was like, no, just do this, the process, call the government in Switzerland, blah, blah, blah. I was like, must be so. It's gonna take years to get that money. Deadline was coming for the first payment. And my mom never learned French. She could barely speak Spanish, and she had to call a lady from Switzerland. I don't know how she was able to communicate with her, but everything happened, and everything worked so well. The next day, the money was on our way. And if you're paying attention, guess how much money we have in the bank account? Exactly what I needed to pay my first semester. That was 10 years later. Money just showing up out of nowhere. I hope that happens again. Crazy, man. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So here I am. After this first semester, my parents have never spent money with me anymore, and somehow God has been paying all my bills. It's been crazy. It's been amazing. Unbelievable. 6 months, guys. In 6 months, I went from working in a factory producing toys in a small city in Brazil to be on an airplane, coming to the United States of America to study and play soccer. So I remember when I got here, they left me waiting at the airport for 3 hours. I was so scared because I didn't know anyone. I didn't have phone. I was like, what if they forgot me? What I'm going to do? I don't know where I am. He showed up, brought me to Southwestern. We came by the 39 Expressway, and then I saw Southern Nazarene University. I was like, is that my school? No, that's not my school. But you know, Southern and Southwestern, if you're not from here and it's your first day in the United States, are pretty similar words. But anyways, I saw Southern Nazarene University. I was like, wow, that's a nice school. And then I saw my school, and I saw, yeah, that's a nice school too. But deep in my heart, I was like, well, I'm from the Church of Nazarene, and there's a Nazarene school right there. I wish I could go there. So I'm at Southwestern, freshman year goes by, we're national champions for the NCCAA. I'm a leading scorer. Then sophomore year goes by, and we are national champions again for the NCCAA. And then Neil Cagle, the guy that brought me here, decides to retire. And I was like, man, maybe that's my chance to try to transfer. But like deep in my heart, I thought like, nah, it's not gonna happen. SNU must be so much expensive than Southwestern. But I'll give it a shot. I texted Trevor Harmon, which is the head coach from SNU. And we had a 2 hours meeting. And I prayed like crazy the night before. I was like, God, I really want you to transfer, but if you don't want, don't let it happen. And Harmon was pretty amazing to me. Little did I know what was coming for me with all the fitness tests and everything. But it was a great day. And I don't know why. I don't know the reason. But he decided to give me a chance. And he brought me here at SNU. Now, me, a guy from the Nazarene Church in Brazil that had no idea that Nazarene schools existed. And I'm about to have a degree with like a Nazarene name in it. So my parents are freaking out, telling everyone. My aunts, uncles think I'm a pastor. It's crazy. I'm doing sports management, but well. I'm saying all of that because I want you to know that no matter what your dream is, no matter what your goals are or what you want to accomplish in your life, God has something much bigger for you. Much, much bigger. You know, my dream, like I said, was to play soccer in Brazil. I'm not the greatest player in the world, so I'll be playing soccer and probably need to have another job. I always dream about visiting the United States, visiting the White House, Times Square, Disney, because, you know, if you're Brazilian, everybody wants to go to Disney there. It's amazing. But my main dream was to play soccer. But my dream was this big compared to what God had for me. Today I live here. When I went to try to get my visa for tourism, they denied my visa. They didn't give me. They said I would stay here illegally. Anyways, The tourist visa gives you 6 months, and then you need to go back to your country. Then I went there to get a student visa, which got accepted, and it gives me 4 years, which is much better. So all of this is to say that no matter what you dream, no matter what you're planning with your life, trust me, God has something much, much bigger for you. I was able to visit the White House. I was able to visit the Times Square. I didn't go to Disney, but I went to Universal. But the best thing is, when I left those places, instead of going back to Brazil, I came back to Oklahoma because that's where I live. And that's where God wanted me to be. Remember the words from Isaiah 55:9. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Dream big, dream, you gotta dream. But remember that doesn't matter what you dream of, God is gonna take that and make something much bigger. So you're gonna realize that you didn't accomplish because you were nice, you're pretty, you have the skills, none of that. But because He wanted to. I'm not here because of my strength. I'm not here because Neil Cagle thought I was a great player. I'm here first because that's what God had for me. And He has something much bigger for you. Trust that. God bless you.